All right, welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about living in the end. And yes, I did say yesterday that the videos this week are going to be a little bit weird, but we did remove the paper on the window. So I think in these next few videos, things are going to look pretty normal. But if the videos do go back to looking like I'm filming in like some sort of dungeon, that's because, again, there's paper on the window when we're painting the house. So, but I do think these next few days I should be fine when it comes to that. So yeah, I think today we're fine. Maybe tomorrow's video we're fine, but then maybe other videos this week I'm gonna look like I'm in a dungeon. I'm not. Okay, I'm just painting the house. But yeah. Anyway, let's talk about living in the end. That's today's video. We're gonna clear up a lot of things about living in the end. We're gonna talk about living in the end versus acting as if, because they are not the same thing. How to actually live in the end and what living in the end actually is, because believe it or not, living in the end is actually the entire point of manifestation. You can't really not live in the end. Living in the end is the entire goal, by the way. That's why Neville Goddard's most popular lecture on YouTube is just Neville Goddard - live in the end, because it's kind of the most important thing to do. But yeah, before we get into the video, if you do want direct access to me in this group chat, go on the bottom link in the description and you can get direct coaching with me. So check that out if you want direct coach me. Again, I highly recommend you buy the annual pack, because again, the annual pack will keep you there for a full year and it is 34% off. So you can lock in for a full year, full direct access to me. Again, whenever I'm active in the chat, of course. But yeah, if you want help with this, the link is down below in the description. But yeah, let's talk about living in the end. So when it comes to living in the end, like I said, it really is everything. Your goal is to live in the end. And people, again, when it comes to manifestation, I hate to say this, but living in the end and states, people have this idea that these are techniques and they're methods to get what you want. They're not. These are not techniques. That is just what it is. It's just flat. It's just there. It just is. There is no states. There is no living in the end. It just is. Like, you just have to do it in order to get what you want. There is no state. There's no technique to the state. There is no technique to live in the end. Like, living in the end is not a technique. There's techniques to get to living in the end. There's techniques to get to the dominant state. Again, the dominant state, in order to get to the dominant state, you have to live in the end. In order to live in the end, many of you need techniques. So again, living in the end is not a technique. You have to do it. You have to live in the end. And again, living in the end is not literally like live in the end 24/7, but yeah, let's get into that part. So yeah, living in the end versus acting as if. You don't act as if. I never ever have taught that you have to act as if. Acting in the 3D literally does nothing for you. It does literally nothing for you. Acting as if, thinking, oh, I want to manifest millions of dollars, so I'm gonna go buy a suit and a tie or a dress or the Cartier bracelet or whatever materialistic prop that you need to show that you're rich. And a lot of these like insecure rich people, they need to flex that they're rich all the time. It's kind of annoying. You don't need to do any of that. Acting as if, I have never ever taught to act as if. I will never teach act as if. Acting as if, I think, is mainly like a law of attraction term. And the only reason why I say that is because I haven't heard acting as if in like 5 years. And 5 years ago, I was trying to learn law of attraction through like Bob Proctor and Abraham Hicks and all those idiots, even though I kind of like Bob Proctor. I don't really agree with Bob Proctor, but I do like him just as a person. But yeah, I never teach acting as if. Acting as if is not anything good. Living in the end, what it actually is, it's not acting as if, it is living in the end. Living in the end, it means live in the end in your imagination. So in your imagination, whatever you do, you're supposed to think as if. That is living in the end. That's what Neville means when he says live in the end, that's what I mean. When I say live in the end, that's what anyone who understands manifestation means when they say live in the end. You live in the end in your imagination as if you already received your desire. And your goal is to not have any contradicting thoughts against it. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's say you're trying to manifest $10,000 a month. Or let's say you're trying to, actually, let's ignore money because I made a lot of examples about money. Let's say you're trying to manifest a new iPhone. You want to manifest a new iPhone, the latest one, whatever, around like the 17th or something. Let's say you're trying to manifest an iPhone 17. If in order to do that, you have to dominantly think that you have received the iPhone 17. That's what you call living in the end. You're trying to change your dominant state. How do you do that? Well, like I always say, if you're trying to manifest an object, you find an object that you currently have, like I said, these Chinese Communist AirPods that I currently have, and all the thoughts that I have with these Chinese Communist AirPods, all glory to the Chinese Communist Party. These Chinese Communist AirPods, I can say I have this, I can hold it in my hand. If someone were to ask me, can I use them? I can say yes. If someone were to ask me, can you show them to me? I can say yes. In my head, I have these. This is what I currently have. My goal, if I'm trying to manifest an iPhone 17, is to, instead of saying my beautiful Chinese Communist AirPods, all glory to the Chinese Communist Party, my goal instead is to say I have this iPhone 17. I pretend that this right here is an iPhone 17, and the same thoughts that I have about this, that are something that I literally currently have, I think those exact same thoughts with my iPhone 17 that I want. Again, in my head. If someone were to ask me in my head, of course, like how I'm naturally responding to people in my head, my goal is to say, yes, I already have the iPhone 17. I live with the iPhone 17. When I set my alarm clock at night, I do it on my iPhone 17. If someone were to ask me what phone do I have, I'm going to say I have my iPhone 17. In real life, I am not going to lie to people and say, oh, I have an iPhone 17. And then when they ask, hey, can you show me your iPhone 17? I'm going to look like I have my pants down, like I got caught with my pants down. No, I don't want to get caught with my pants down. In real life, I still answer with the old story. But as soon as I answer with the old story, as soon as I go into a resting position, or like I go into like a neutral state where I go for like a walk or something, or I go to sleep or something, my dominant state has to be that I can show anyone my iPhone 17. And it naturally, I almost revised that. Naturally, you revise that, yes, you could show anyone your iPhone 17. But again, in real life, you don't act as if. You don't want to be caught with your pants down, get caught jerking off on a live stream. That's not the goal. Your goal isn't to humiliate yourself in real life and try and, I'm just acting as if. No, your goal is to change your dominant assumption in your head and live in the end in your head, in your imagination. And again, like I always say, when Neville Goddard got drafted into World War II, he did not act as if. He said, no, sorry, Sergeant, I need to go back home because I need to act as if in my head. And then if I go back home, I'll just somehow everyone will be okay with that. No, what Neville did when he was trying to leave boot camp and when he was drafted into World War II, in his head, he affirmed in his head, and he did stay akin to sleep in his head, that he is already back with his family in New York. He played that clip, that stayed akin to sleep in his head nonstop, and 9 days later, he was out of the army honorably. He was honorably out of the army. That's how you do it. That's what living in the end means. Living in the end, it means in your head. It does not mean act as if in the 3D. Okay, you do not want to be caught with your pants down. All you have to do is your dominant assumption in your head has to be you have your desire. Okay? And how do you know that? You think the exact same thoughts that you would have if your desire was here. And you could do the intruder technique, or you can do the interview technique if you want to think If you're worried about, am I doing this right? Do the intruder technique, which I made a video about, so check that out. You can also do the interview technique where you can pretend someone's interviewing you and say, do you have an iPhone 17? And your goal is to be like, yes, I have an iPhone 17. But whatever you're trying to manifest, same thing. If you're trying to manifest an SP, same thing. You think thoughts that you would only think that if you had them. Those are only thoughts you think. Again, dominant thoughts. You don't have to like think of it like 24/7, but your dominant thoughts. And that's it. That's what living in the end means. I have my Chinese Communist AirPods. I have my iPhone 17. I have my SP. They're all accessible to me right now. They're going to be accessible to me whenever I want. I can do whatever. I live a great life, and just repeat those thoughts in your head. And as soon as they become your dominant assumption, they will manifest in front of your eyes. They will externalize in front of your eyes. And you wouldn't have to act as if at all in 3D, because acting as if is fucking stupid. It's pretty dumb to act as if. You don't want to be caught with your pants down. It's just stupid. People are going to think you're, like, especially if you're a guy and you're trying to like dress up in like suits or something, and you're trying to like wear like fake watches and fake like shoes, like those materialistic douchebags do. Like, you're just going to look like a douchebag, quite honestly. You don't want to act as if. Everyone's going to be like, oh, this guy, he just watched like too much like red pill content. And people are going to think you're a goddamn idiot. So yeah, don't do that. Don't act as if. Just live in the end in your head. That's what living in the end means. Every single technique is just trying to get you to live in the end, because living in the end is the most important thing. It's just every single technique. Affirming, stay akin to sleep, everything. They're just trying to get you to live in the end. That's it. If you don't live in the end and you do all the other techniques for like 5 minutes a day, you're not going to get your manifestation. It's living in the end what actually matters. Every single technique is trying to get you to live in the end, to change your thoughts as if they're in the end, that you already received your desire. And affirming does that. Robotically affirming is like the easiest method to do to get to that. I'm going to make, that's going to be tomorrow's video about images, but yeah. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. Live in the end. Do not act as if. Live in the end in your imagination. Have your dominant answers to any questions be I have this in your imagination, and you do not contradict it. Obviously, you don't have to be perfect, but try your hardest not to contradict it. You don't have to be perfect, but just try your hardest to be perfect. But yeah. Anyways, that's for today's video. Hopefully I cleared something up for the confused part of the manifestation societies out there. Again, if you want coaching with me, make sure to check the bottom link in the description. And yeah, join the school. And you can get direct access to me so I can really get your details of your circumstances in depth, and I can give you proper answers. And again, I highly suggest you buy the annual pack so you can stay with me for a full year. Okay, great deal. But yeah, anyways, that's for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, bye.